morning, everybody. I know we'll have people join, and I think more importantly, we'll have a lot of people that come back and really watch the recording. This call is kind of in the middle of the day, so this is we're getting started on this and getting the word out. But I think last week I wanted to really launch the consortium with talking about a couple different Clay workflows that I think were important to me. The first one, if you recall, last week we talked about using OpenRouter to connect to a wide variety of large language models, right? And so what that did was really just open the door for creating copy using things like GPT-4 Omni, looking at Google Flash, which both had just been released previously, but then a whole bunch of other models, right? Like Mistral or whatever suits your fancy, so to say. And then on Thursday, we kind of introduced some new workflows. So we talked specifically about LinkedIn and within Clay specifically, but it can be any source. But we use Clay as an example in two different tables there where we brought in through LinkedIn, company searches or individual personal searches. And, depending on what Clay account you're on, you can do that up to, like 50,000 leads. So at a time for free. And then we also look at Google business profiles, right? But with both of those sources, whether it be LinkedIn or whether it be Google business profiles, in the LinkedIn scenario, you come in without an email, right? You have first name, last name, right? If you're using Sales Nav, you're using Clay, it doesn't really matter. In the Google business profile section, we talked about how you have to go out and use AI or other sources to find the contact that you're looking for, because in a Google business profile, you don't have even a first name or last name. You have a business name, an address, et cetera. So, and then that's where we brought in ICPs, right? So in both of those workflows that we showed, we talked about how we were using ICPs. So I gave a little context of this last week, but this is just a big introduction for Pierre. But I honestly was not familiar with ICPs at all just 2 weeks ago. I was on a call with a client and we were talking about, and I was asking him, building a solution for him, like, where do you want to get the emails? You want me to go to Apollo? You want me to use Instantly, et cetera, right? All the different names. And he's like, have you not heard of ICPs? And I said, no, I haven't. And he said, well, go check this out, right? So if you know anything about me, you probably know, like, I post a lot of stuff on YouTube, LinkedIn, whatever, right? So I get messages all day long. Josh, go check this out. Go check this out, right? So I am pretty skeptical, generally speaking, right? Because I guess I'm a little bit cocky, but I'm like, if I haven't heard of it, it's probably not something I need to spend time. But I trusted this client. He showed me. I went to look. So after we got off the call, I started digging in a little bit. I'm like, this is too good to be true, right? I mean, I've seen a lot of different email providers. One, I'm obviously a partner with Instantly, so I've used, their tool a lot, but I don't know. So I was like, okay, so let me look at the API documentation. And then I'm like, okay, I wonder if they're built into Clay. So I went to Clay and sure enough, they're already there, right? So I'm like, okay, Pierre and his team, they've done some work, right? Because they've already set up this connection with Clay. So I'm like, very easy to try to demonstrate, the value of this tool. So I'm giving some context to Pierre, but I built these workflows. I appended ICPs through the enrichment in Clay. And just because I didn't know anything about ICPs, I went in and I, added just a verifier, right? I think I used zero bounds, right? So I went in and started pulling emails, and sure enough, I was getting good emails back, and every single one of them were verified, right? So then I'm like, okay, that meets all my steps of criteria. The next thing I would do is let's use it in a live campaign, right? So I took some of those emails, I put them in a live campaign, and exactly what I expected, right? Great results, low bounce rate, everything, right? So, and then after I experienced that myself, then I brought that to all of you on Thursday, right? So in between there, Pierre, and I don't know to this day if it's a mailer or not, but he sent out an email to me, kind of explaining the pricing model, a little bit of clarity, right? And I love the email because it was sent with humility. Like, some people don't understand our pricing model. Here's how we work, right? Here's how we do verifications, credits. Here's how we do email credits, right? So I just out of jest responded to him, and I was like, hey, your product's great. I really like it. I've tested it. I'm going to be using the heck out of it. I'm going to be telling a lot of people about it. And he wrote back to me, right? So I'm in some other marketing groups, right, with some other lead gen agencies, and they speak, very, very highly of ICPs. So I just asked Pierre, I'm like, would you like to come talk to the group? And he said, of course. And so here he is. We don't have a real huge agenda. I've got it on the screen. I'm going to let Pierre tell you a little bit about ICPs, and then we're going to go into kind of an interactive session, talking about deliverability, talking about, lead gen, just anything related to, we kind of both have similar backgrounds. He's been doing a lot longer than me. And he's got 13,000 followers on LinkedIn. So he must be doing something right compared to my measly 3,000. So with that, Pierre, you want to introduce yourself and just tell us a little bit about how you got to ICPs. I mean, this is a great product. So tell us how you got here.
Yeah, sure. So first of all, thank you very much for inviting me to speak with you. And thank you for this great intro. I'm very honored to hear all those good things from you. And I'm glad if you like the product. So a little bit about myself. I'm a French entrepreneur. I have some experience in doing business with foreign countries, especially the US, because 10 years ago, I had a company in the connected objects industry. And we did a lot of business with the US, especially because we had a partnership with Steelcase, which helped us a lot. But whatever. But just to say that I'm an entrepreneur and I've done a lot of prospection for my different businesses in the past. So years after years, I developed some expertise in this field. And I also noticed that some problems were not completely solved. One of them is finding emails. At that time, the email finders that were already on the market were doing some very poor job. Actually, they were the pioneers of the enrichment business, but so that was good enough for the time. But I had these feelings that it could be possible to do a better job. So I decided to co-found ICPs to try to bring a better solution to this problem on the market. Currently, we are happy to see that we have a pretty good email discovery rates with a very low bounce rate. You mentioned that during the intro. In average, we have a 3% bounce rate, which is much better than many other tools. But we believe there is still some room for improvement. So in the coming months, we will release major updates, and we'll still keep increasing these numbers, the discovery rate and the bounce rate. But the bounce rate will decrease, obviously. So that's for the close future. And once again, I'm very glad to have this talk with you, Josh.
Thank you, Pierre. So I got a couple questions just to kind of start off, right? I mean, we look at your screen, right? And I assume I'm sharing the website, right, guys? Adam, do you mind nodding or someone with their camera on? You can see his website.
Yeah, we see your agenda at the moment.
The calendar right now.
Your calendar.
Oh, see, I'm glad I asked. All right. Thanks for clarifying, guys. All right, we should see. Yeah, so, I'm looking at your website, Pierre, and I say, it's 5 more emails. What caught me there, right, is no databases, no cascading tools, just one powerful engine, right? So I don't want you to give away your secret sauce, right? But can you describe, like, why is ICPs different, right? We go to Apollo, and it's obviously a big database, or Zoom Info, or anything else, right? Like, what is the differentiating factor? Because I think a lot of us, from a lead generation perspective, historical lead gen is go to a database, find a role or a company or something that matches my criteria, pay whatever the appropriate amount is for that email and download it, right? And then roll.
Yeah.
Whereas more and more of us are saying, hey, those databases aren't good enough anymore. I need to find a specific criteria that meets my ICP, and I'm not going to have the email at the end of that. And I've found, at least in my preliminary, explorations, right, that, no, you're not going to get all the emails from ICPs, right? You're not going to get them all from anywhere. It's just in those other tools, you don't know you're getting them because they're only giving you the positive output, right? But tell me, like, what makes you guys kind of unique? Because I've found, like, pretty good results as long as I have a first name, last name, or domain.
Okay, so we have two ways to differentiate from Apollo, for example, or all the all-in-one solutions like this. First, our data is fresh. By contrast with Apollo, where the data is not very old, but still it's not like it's not real-time data. If we take Apollo as an example, they scrape LinkedIn, but they have like a few months old profiles. It's not like the very last month's profile you will find on Apollo. So sometimes it's 6 months old, or sometimes it's even 12 months old. So that's the first point. And obviously the emails also sometimes are a bit old. The second point is that we are way cheaper. Our goal was to make emails affordable for everyone. If you look at Apollo's website, they say they offer unlimited emails, but actually it's not exactly true because they have what they call export credits, and those are very limited. So okay, you can take every email you want one by one, but when it comes to bulk enriching, you have to use those export credits, and it's a limiting factor. I'm aware that there are some Apollo scrapers that do a pretty good job at scraping Apollo, and it could be a way to bypass this limitation, but it's this solution has other limitations itself. So basically, we are a very cheap solution when comparing to all the all-in-one solutions. And if you look at behind the scene, what makes our secret sauce so efficient? To answer that, I have to just explain a little bit how an email finder works in general. So may I take 1 minute or two to explain that?
Of course, yeah.
So, okay, the basic way, if I simplify a lot, you take as input data a first name, a last name, and a domain. And from that, you will generate all the possible patterns. And then you will try to test and verify each of these patterns one by one until you find the good one. So it's a brute force approach where you generate all the possibilities and you test them until you find the good one. To verify an email address, there are several ways. First, you can crawl the web to see if you find the email address on some web pages. We do that, but it's a weak signal because it's not because you find a lot of emails that are not valid anymore online. So it's one signal, but alone it generates too much bounces. So the main source of verification is SMTP. SMTP is the protocol to exchange emails between servers. And within this protocol, you have a command, a request you can send to mail servers, which is called RCPT2. Actually, there are 3 versions of that, but I simplify. And so when you send this request to a mail server, for example, if we take your email address, Josh, I will just from the domain find the MX records, and from the MX records, I will understand who is your mail server provider, your ESP, your email service provider, and I will send a RCPT2 command to this server, asking if he knows the email address I want to verify. And a lot of times, they will answer yes or no. I say a lot of time because in some other cases, these ESPs they are in a catch-all mode. It means that they will always answer yes or always answer no to avoid email finders to find too many emails. And one big part of our secret sauce is that we have found a way to bypass the catch-all mode on most of the ESPs. Not all of them, but most of them. For example, the two biggest one, Google and Microsoft. And those just those two ESPs, they stand for perhaps 60 or 70% of all the inboxes, mail inbox in the world. So to bypass this catch-all mode, and sorry if I'm too much technical here, but instead of just sending one request, we send thousands of requests to verify the same email address. And we look at the differences between the metadata and the response time. And based on that, we can say when the server is telling the truth or when it is lying. So that's basically how we work. Yeah.
Yeah, that's phenomenal, right? So that's kind of like, I've used all kinds of verification tools, right? But it kind of gives me it's a great perspective on like what has to go on behind the scenes. So well worth the explanation.
Yeah, it's a very interesting topic. To keep digging on that and sharing information about that. One thing is that today, when you do email verification, you have to manage a large pool of IP addresses, because if you use the same IP address every time you send a request, very soon you will be blacklisted by the ESPs. So you have to manage a very large pool of IP, and a big part of the cost and the know-how of the good email verifiers is about how to rotate those IP addresses and to keep them healthy. So that's one part of the topic. A second information I wanted to add is that currently ICPs, to be fully transparent, we are very good with the big ESPs. We are not that good with the very small ESPs. So for people who would like to verify a very large list of email addresses, a good combination is to use ICPs first. And then when we send the status unknown for an email address, it means that we have not been able to verify it or to make it or to see it as undeliverable. So the opposite of verified. And in this case, it makes sense to use a second email verifier, like use Bouncer, for example, because those more edgy, can I say edgy? No, maybe not, but more those older email verifiers that have more years of product development, they have managed to deal with those small ESPs. Obviously, it's something we will do at ICPs, but we need a few more months to be like very efficient on all the small ESPs. Yeah.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Like, yeah, I mean, definitely, we all know how Google and Microsoft, how big they are in the space. So, I think that it's a great transition question. I'm going to ask this question, and then I'm going to kind of open it up to the group, talk a little bit about deliverability, because this kind of all falls under the realm of deliverability. But I'm sure you heard the chatter in the last week or two about Microsoft and some of the challenges that are there. I personally experienced some challenges when the same thing happened with Zoho as well. Right. I've also personally experienced hundreds of accounts in one day going from completely deliverable to hitting spam on Google after multiple tests. Right. And to fix that, had to go in and just go plain text, no HTML, et cetera, to get all those account back to hitting inboxes. So, I guess the question it's really quite a loaded question, but the question for you is, what are your thoughts on, just the state of deliverability today? Like, do you recommend any particular strategy when it comes with sticking with Google and Microsoft? Do you recommend, some of the third-party vendors that, do have their own servers and or, go out and get, I think some of them are using like Enom to get email that, inboxes, stuff like that. So what are your thoughts there on like how do you keep hitting the inbox? Because I think it's, universally for everybody getting a little bit harder.
Yeah, that's a very large question.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's becoming more and more sophisticated and complicated and technical month after month. Um, Regarding the last month's update from Microsoft, a lot of people are transitioning from Microsoft to Google, even though we all know that Google inboxes tend to be disconnected or blocked more often when Google sees that there is some automated actions on those accounts. So it's more maintenance, but the deliverability seems to be better now on Google than on Microsoft because of this update. It seems also there is that a lot of people who have been affected by this update were using inboxes from resellers. So it might be also due to the fact that those resellers have abused of some Microsoft accounts in some ways. Regarding deliverability in general, yeah, I mean, there are the basics are still important. Having good DNS records, warming up your inbox. Plain text also helps a lot. Obviously, it helps a lot with the email deliverability, but I noticed that having a very good-looking and legit HTML signature increase the response rate. So it decreases the email deliverability, but once the email is delivered and opened, having a very nice and legit-looking signature improve the response rates. So there is a trade-off between those two metrics, a balance to find. Yeah.
Yeah, great answer. Have you had any experience with like some of the third party, like the Mail Dosos, Mail Forges, any of those that, are, I think a lot of us, that use Instantly or Smartly kind of have all experienced some combination of using Google or Microsoft, right? But, and then, I know some companies have gone out and tried some of these other vendors. I have not personally, so I can't speak to the deliverability of them, but I've seen, some get results for a couple months and then they all die. Some, which can happen in Google and Microsoft, to be fair. But, and then some are getting, great results. I was just curious, not to call out any one vendor or the other, but, do you believe in the concept of some of that, because the way I've heard it described is very similar to, almost how you described how you validate emails, which is using multiple IPs, swapping and maintaining those IPs, just doing it on, mail servers. So just wondering if you had any experience with that, or, you're kind of a stick to the core fundamentals kind of guy.
I stick to the core plane directly. I have purchased inboxes, so I don't have a direct experience from that. Obviously, I talk with a lot of people who use those resellers, and they seem to be in a lot of trouble now. But it doesn't mean it's like the dead end for this some market. Some of them will update also their own way of functioning, and perhaps they will be able to solve this problem. So I don't know. I cannot have a say on that. Sorry.
No, then that's why I asked, because I don't know either.
Yes,
so I
yeah.
figured I'd ask you. All right. So before we move on to another topic like lead gen or anything, I just wanted to, this is meant to be interactive, right? So I wanted to open just the floor. You can unmute yourself or you can chat in, whatever, and I can ask the question for you. But I am definitely not the expert by any means on deliverability. I mean, I have a lot of knowledge, but Pierre's probably got some more knowledge than me on a lot of things. So take the time and, what questions do you have? Anybody want to fire away?
Yeah, I'll ask a question.
No, please go ahead. But I see there are some comments or questions in the chat also.
Yeah, I'm going to grab them too. So, Grant, was that you, I think?
Yeah, I have a question. Thanks, Pierre. Good to talk with you again. My question is, I see on LinkedIn everybody claims to be the best email finder, and some of the ones I see people talk about a lot are Find Email and BetterContact Rocks or whatever it is. Um, I think I was curious how you compare to those two solutions in particular, and why using ICPs is better than using like a waterfall solution like BetterContact.
Okay. So yeah, as you said, BetterContact is a waterfall, and Find Email and ICPs are just basic providers, email providers. And to be fair, Find Email has more features than we have. They have a sales nav extractor, they have an Apollo scraper, they have many more features. So it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for the maximum, the top email discovery rates, a waterfall is better because they will combine different email providers. But it's about 10 times the price. So if you have some budget constraints, it could be a good idea to just stick to one direct provider, or to build your own waterfall as well. You can do that on the Clay, for example, and you can do that on make.com. So there are very different possibilities according to your budget constraint and your main target. Is it saving money? Is it improving your discovery rates? Honestly, BetterContact or all the waterfall solutions, they are very smart solution. And by the way, ICPs is included in BetterContact as well as in other waterfalls like Clay's waterfall or full enrich waterfall. Yeah, it really depends on what you're looking for. Do I answer your question?
Yeah, that's great. Thanks.
You're welcome.
And then Curtis, I saw your message, so I don't want to call you out, but I just want to make sure.
Yeah, thank you.
When you say, can you just elaborate on what kind of use case to frame?
Perfect. Yeah, thank you. So pretty much a novice to this conversation. I think this is, clearly one of the aspects of just marketing and business in general. And this is kind of the nuts and bolts of executing probably a successful campaign of any sort, marketing and such. So I think broadly speaking, that's what I'm hearing the conversation to be about. The use case, as I'm framing the question, really, lends itself to kind of, when you look at the stages of how you might approach something, there's going to be a community on this call that are pretty mature, pretty far along, and perhaps, an ongoing practice of marketing and such with their processes and such. So I think, depending on where you are, there's kind of if you're kind of in early stages and you're getting started, you might want to go this route for this particular kind of thing to get familiar with this, thinking about how it integrates into your other systems. And then you're also going to equally have, somebody who's further along that might need some of those more advanced capabilities and have the, business justification for going perhaps to the more powerful tools. So as I'm hearing Pierre frame the trade-offs, of what you can, expect for the different types of product offerings. That's a lot of words. Do you want me to summarize it, or is it kind of generally speaking clear why I'm asking? And if not, I mean, I can give you the short version. I just want to give you a little backdrop.
I'm interested in the short version.
So here I am, brand new. What would be the tool to look at considering that? And then secondarily, I think I already heard a question asked about Find Email, BetterContact, which sounds like perhaps somebody with a more robust program. So how would you, characterize where you are in the business to consider when to use your capabilities?
Okay, thank you very much. That's very clear. So regarding your first question, and what's the stack of tools you might consider when you're beginning, it really depends on what you want to do at first. There are very different possibilities. Are you interested in doing, for example, multi-channel campaigns or just email campaigns? Are you targeting large corporations in the US, outside, or small businesses? But, depending on all of these factors, there are very various possibilities. I give you a very concrete examples. If you're targeting very small businesses, usually they don't have nominative email addresses. So a lot of email finders won't be useful for that. And you will be better off to look at Google Maps scrapers like scrape.io, for example. They scrape the Google Maps business cards. And on that, they find the generic email address like contact at the domain or info at the domain. So that's one use case. But if you're targeting some middle management in large corporations, nominative email addresses are really a good starting point because they exist. You can address them. But so for that, ICPs and some other email finders are very good. But if you target the top management of those very same corporations, email might be not the best channel for them because they receive too many emails. So in this case, you might want to cold call them or even use different channels like LinkedIn, WhatsApp, or whatever. There are other ways. So the use cases are very different from when you take into consideration the targets, your value proposition, your business. So it's hard to give a very short and clear answer to that.
No, that's actually perfect. I think, and Josh, just as a kind of feedback loop, first, these are awesome you're even doing this in the first place. But I think, for, the qualification of who's on these calls and for what reasons, I think if you're having something of this nature, that might be helpful to kind of frame appropriateness for these various tools. This is perfect for me because I have the benefit of going to a guy who's gave me just like some really important nuggets to probably save a lot of time and a lot of money. But anyway, thank you, Pierre.
Yeah, that's a fair point, Curtis. It's really meant to kind of be, that you'll, as you see and you get into this, it's such a big area of things to cover, right? That we could probably do a better job of applying context, but this is our third call. We're 2 weeks into it.
No, it's all great.
We're getting better as we can.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And then just as a kind of a feedback loop, because it's all a journey for all of us, and where are we at on that journey? Are we at the early stages? Are we further along? And just makes us better to contribute to the conversation as well. But thank you. It's all good. Appreciate it.
Yeah, glad to have you. So, hey, Harrison, you may see me looking you up on LinkedIn. I was just trying to, because I forgot I was sharing the screen. I was trying to figure out where you worked. Like, you look like you're in an airport hangar. So I thought it was pretty cool. So kind of looks like one of those backdrops when the president comes in town. So you don't have to unmute yourself. But if you saw me on the screen trying to figure out what that was, that's what that was. So.
And regarding your second question, Curtis, how ICPs is positioned in this market. We are a very simple, mere email finder at the moment. We'll build a larger, bigger product in the future, but at the moment we are just an email finder. So we try to be the best on this very particular brick, email enrichment, by having the highest email discovery rate and the lowest bounce rate. If you compare us against Find Email, for example, we have less features, but we find more emails and they are more accurate than Find Email. Although Find Email is a pretty good product compared to many others. But it really depends on also the input data. If you give us just the company names without the domains, for example, we outperform Find Email and many other email finders. Actually, most of them except Apollo, by far. But if you give us the domains, the gap is less big. It's a smaller gap. Also, I agree with you on the fact that in this industry, everybody claims to be the best. So obviously, you have to do your own tests. You cannot trust just the claims, the marketing claims, because there is a lot of bullshit. by entering in this market, I was surprised to see how a lot of marketing fluff we can find, unfortunately. That's why I introduced the concept of open source benchmark. When I do a performance benchmark, I open source all the raw data I've used for making this benchmark, to conduct this benchmark. So anyone can reproduce the same results, and it gives some interest, some trustability to the benchmark. And I would like to be followed by my peers on this trend. Unfortunately, until now, most of the benchmark are still not open sourced. It means that they are just like pure claims, but you cannot check the raw data. So it doesn't mean a lot. But I hope in the future this will change and people will be more transparent when they do benchmarks.
The only thing I would like to add, one quick thing here, and it's for all. I don't know that this is really the scope, but a big part of this challenge, which now all of a sudden, how many experts do we have in less than a year about AI? I mean, everybody's the expert. They're going to guide you to the promised land, and email is one aspect of that, correct? So I think it would be beneficial to the community, people trying to figure out what the journey should look like. So Pierre, what you just framed there is actually really, it's good IP for the fact that if you provide that contrast, now of course you're giving away your IP, but it certainly helps somebody like me establish a much greater trust in following Pierre instead of all the other experts and Josh as a case in point. At some point we want to find our little core team and try to ignore all the noise.
Yeah, just to clarify one point, I mentioned open source, but I did not mean that we open source all our software. We open source some modules of our software, but I was really referring to open sourcing the raw data when we conduct a comparative study between ICPs and other email finders.
Yeah, and I'm not talking about your secret sauce. I'm just talking about your thought processes, because your thought processes,
yeah, sure,
they're kind of like getting in the head of the business mind and saying, you're asking these questions. Let me tell you where we are. That's very valuable. So that's all. I'll leave it with that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So yeah, you're okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Curtis. Gio, you had a question. So for blue collar small businesses where it's an owner operator, oftentimes using a large ESP like Gmail or where they aren't on LinkedIn, other than checking the website and the Facebook page, are there other solutions to find email addresses here? Like I've seen some workflows like Apify is a tool where you can pull down Facebook, and look on Facebook, but Facebook's obviously really, really restrictive with their API. So any feedback as to for that? I guess I can add a little context to this because I've done some of this work too. Like there's so many people today in the cold email world that want to target or want to reach out to their ICP as small businesses. These are your people that have Google business profiles but don't necessarily have LinkedIn. A lot of them do have Facebook pages, but any recommendations on good ways to find email addresses for those people?
Yeah, when you're targeting very small businesses, as I said, a lot of times they don't have nominative email addresses. They just have one generic role-based email address, like info@ or contact@. And we developed at ICPs actually a module which is just designed for that specific purpose. So you can upload a list of domains, and on each of those domains, we'll search for generic email addresses, and we will be able to find some of them. So that's one way. You can also look at, as I said, the Google My Business, the Google Business profiles. But besides that, I don't see. There are other ways, like for example, if they are on Facebook, from Facebook, you can find some interesting data. But as you said, the API is very limited, and the anti-bot system is very restrictive. So yeah, that's I'm specifically thinking of our module, which is done for that.
Yeah, I think to follow up on that, I've had some success personally with using like large language models to find email addresses, but I consistently find that, let's just say OpenAI, for example, they will consider an email address PII, personal information, right? So they'll mask it. Have you run into that issue, or do you guys try to use large language models to find email addresses? Because we can get to the site, right? I can get to someone's Facebook, LinkedIn, but the challenge is always and it'll return an email address, but they tend to mask them.
Oh yeah. First of all, on our module on ICPs, this is not the way it works. We don't crawl the website to find the emails. We brute force the emails by generating all the possibilities, like we generate contact at the domain, info at the domain, etc. And we try to verify each of them. So it's still the same brute force approach, and we don't crawl anything. But if you crawl the websites, what I would do, and we are working on that, so I'm pretty into that. We use regex, regular expressions, instead of LLM. It's much faster, less costly, and it works pretty well, both for phone numbers and email addresses. Because in the email address, you have the arrobas, the @ sign. So yeah, it works pretty well. And besides that, if you want to bypass the limitations of OpenAI, I would advise to look at open source models like Llama or Mistral, because you can fine tune them, and you can you have actually no problem with that.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So I don't know if anybody else has done that, but I mean, I think it's something. It's in it. The power of some of these large language models are increasing, and there are now several of them that have web access. I mean, obviously OpenAI does to a certain point, but like Cohere is an example of a model that you can get accurate data from a website, using a large language model. So great techniques there.
If you want to just extract emails from a website, I'm thinking of a Google Sheet add-on, which was released by Lemlist. You know Lemlist? So they released the Google Sheet add-on just a couple of months ago. And for free, they do this extraction of emails from websites in this add-on. So you can have it for free, and it's pretty well done.
Awesome. Let's see. I think I got through any of the questions in the chat. Any other questions from the group?
Josh, can you give sort of a roadmap, at least your generalized vision of your investment here? You've got Pierre. Pierre, what time zone are you in, by the way?
I'm in France, so it's 8 p.m. Here.
So this is your real accent?
Yeah, I'm not faking it.
We're trying to fix our English accents, but I think we're pretty transparent. Anyway, no, great. Thank you for getting on to the call. But Josh, do you have any kind of generalized thoughts you had a pretty long roadmap, you're doing something pretty substantial here and inviting people along for the party. I don't know if it's appropriate. If you want to share a minute or two, that'd be much appreciated. And then even if we'll see Pierre again, and then how we can support Pierre, that would be a last closing thing too. Go ahead.
Yeah, fair enough. So a couple things, right, is do I have a roadmap? Yes and no, to be honest with you, Curtis. I think that really the goal here is to bring a forum together to provide information that's relevant to what the vast majority of the people in the group do, which is various aspects of outreach via LinkedIn, email, lead generation. Secondarily, it's hard to say there is a roadmap when it comes to AI specifically. When companies that are significant to what we do are making significant releases every week, right? So, I think if there was a roadmap, it would be to follow down the road of the evolution of AI in relation to outbound lead gen. I do definitely think we will we will have Pierre back by all means. Pierre and I had a chance encounter, and I thought it was really a good opportunity to bring him on. I have a lot of different experts that I'm lining up around, AI and knowledge bases, around experts from Clay and Instantly and different, smart lead major tools that are used in the industry. And Pierre was gracious enough to volunteer to be the first, and he's done a fabulous job. And then I would say as far as really, kind of supporting Pierre, a couple things. So number one, he was gracious enough to share with us. And so my team, Lynn specifically on my team, you can reach out to him through the consortium platform and or on the WhatsApp group. He has the list that Pierre provided us with the links that anybody can get. Start off with 500 credits using ICPs. So you just need to message him directly, and he'll provide you that link. And then I've reshared Pierre's website up on the screen, which is icps.com. I am using it now pretty religiously. I thought as Pierre mentioned, the pricing is really exceptional, like you would expect. And I'm sure Pierre doesn't mind me showing this, but as you expect with any vendors, they're, it's stacked based on usage. But I love the transparency of just cost per email and, how they break down the cost for verification. And then, as you may or may not know, some of the most common tools as far as automation and integration would be Make, Zapier, N8N, add Clay to that list as well, which if you're doing anything from a bulk perspective, 100, 500, 10,000 emails at a time, just makes it that much easier to utilize their service. So hopefully hopefully I did a decent job answering your question, Curtis, but we're kind of, we are kind of figuring it out as we go. And that's part of the organic aspect of this group, but that's really to align with, what I said last week, which was, every time OpenAI releases a new model, 1,000 startups are born, 1,000 startups die, right? So we're trying to be nimble with that, our approach as well.
I have a quick question.
For
Pierre. Pierre, some of these other features on your website, terms of email verification and domain scans and technographics, when will those be available via Clay natively? Because I think right now we just have email finding on Clay.
You're totally correct. Currently on Clay, you can use only the email finder module, not the domain scan, which is the one where you can input domains and we find the role-based emails, and neither the email verifier. So if you are interested in having those features into Clay, it's good if you contact Clay's support and ask for upvoting for this further integration, because obviously since there is a huge hype and it's totally deserved on Clay currently, they have a lot of incoming demand for a lot of different integrations. So it's hard to pop up in the roadmap, but the more you push, the better it will increase the chance to get to have those additional features integrated. And regarding the technographics feature, we have actually deprecated this feature even on our roadmap, on our web app, because after 3 months, we released this feature actually in September last year, and we deprecated the feature because the usage was very, very low, and the feature was requiring a lot of maintenance for us, because we had to keep crawling a lot of different websites. So that's not a feature we offer anymore.
And then Pierre, as a follow-up question, that can all of at least the email finder, verifier, and domains, and we know the finder is connected in Clay. Can the verifier and domain scan be called via API?
Yeah, they can be called by API with the custom HTTP API integration in Clay. So you can do that from Clay with the custom API snippet, or from anywhere else, obviously. So we have an API which is public, so you can use it anyway. Yeah. And in terms of features, the next features we will release is a sales nav extractor, which will be also very affordable if you compare with what is already existing on the market. So basically, we won't charge anything more than the current plan, and we'll just add this feature to the accounts.
Awesome. Guys, we got about 8 or 9 minutes left. So any other questions anybody has? Okay. Well, Pierre, I want to thank you for being here. I thought a really productive discussion, just, on email deliverability as a whole, some great questions as well, from different people in the group via the chat and via the messages. I kind of going back to Curtis's point, I'll take a few minutes just to kind of reiterate, right, that I tell people when I consult people on email, right, everybody comes to cold email from a different approach, right? And part of what I really kind of focus on with people is that it doesn't matter how great your copy is. That's where we all get excited, right? We get to write this amazing copy that hopefully people will react to, and that's the door to getting people on the phone or getting sales, right? But if your emails don't make it to the inbox, then no one ever sees your copy, right? And that's, I think, what a lot of people holistically neglect is the importance of deliverability, the importance of having validated emails and reaching the person you're intending, right? You can have a great offer, but sent to the right audience, you'll get no replies. You can have a great offer, but sent to a bunch of emails that bounce, and you'll burn your domains, and then you're spending money and starting over. And having good emails, which there are a wide variety of sources for, and validating those emails is critical, right? So I'm excited of what you've talked about today and the deliverability. Excited to have you in the group. You're clearly an expert. I would definitely recommend people, if you haven't already, to follow Pierre on LinkedIn, because he's just a wealth of information. Keep up with ICPs, and I'll be excited to kind of post the recording of this to the group, so all 320 of us that are in the group now can just kind of share in your expertise. And I really do just appreciate organically how I came to know you, right? I run a company too. I'll be honest, I get a lot of emails, and my team replies to 95% of them. Hopefully they're smart enough to tell me, like, you need to respond to this one, which they do from time to time. But just impressed at your personal interaction and with your clients. And I think that goes a long way to speak to the type of product you're building and type of product you're delivering. So really glad to have you here. And I would recommend, guys, if you haven't, feel free to go to the website, which is on the screen, check them out. And, now you kind of know a little bit more about their process and what they're doing. So any final words from you, Pierre?
Thank you very much for having me on this webinar. And thank you very much for your kind words. Yeah, it's really appreciated, because when you start a new company, when you're building a product, you face a lot of challenges. So it's always very heartwarming to have this kind of positive feedback. So thank you very much. And I was very, very happy to talk with you guys and girls, maybe. So do not hesitate to ping me on LinkedIn or by email if you want to continue this conversation, if you want to share more insights. I'm wide open. And yeah, that was a very, very cool conversation. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you on Thursday.